Welcome to the Immigrant in Law channel. Do you dream of moving to Europe, but the language barrier stops you? Perhaps it seems that without knowledge of the local language, it is impossible to find a job, get documents, and simply adapt. But is it really so? Today, let's find out which EU countries you can immigrate to without language skills, what options exist, and what professions are in demand, even without language skills. There is a widespread belief that it is practically impossible to adapt in another country without language skills. However, this is not always true. Today, there are many immigrants living in Europe who moved without knowing the local language and managed to successfully get a job, open a business, or even obtain citizenship. But it is important to realize that everything depends on the purpose of the move. Let's take a look at the main scenarios. Employment. For most jobs in Europe, language skills are really necessary, especially in customer service, medicine, or government agencies. However, there are exceptions. International companies often use English as the main language of communication. In areas such as IT, finance, and marketing, many employees do not speak the language of the country where they work at all. Factories, warehouses, and logistics centers often hire foreign workers without requiring language skills at the start. Business and investment. If your goal is to start a business or invest in a country's economy, language skills are not critical. In such cases, it is important to understand international regulations, and you can hire an interpreter or consultant to communicate. For example, Portugal, Spain, Cyprus actively attract investors through golden visa programs. Many entrepreneurs open companies in Estonia or the Czech Republic, taking advantage of simplified business opportunities. Freelancing and remote work. In recent years, many people have been moving to Europe and continuing to work remotely. This is an ideal option for those who do not want to depend on the local labor market. Designers, programmers, marketers, bloggers, all these professions allow you to live in any country without knowing the language. Relocation through study. Many European universities offer programs in English. This is a great way to move to a country, get an education, and eventually integrate into society, already learning the language in the process. For example, Germany and the Netherlands are known for their English language master's programs. Family reunification or marriage. If you have relatives in the EU or are planning to marry an EU citizen, the immigration procedure is much simpler. Language requirements are often less stringent in such cases, and it is possible to learn the language after moving. When it comes to immigrating to Europe without knowing the local language, it is important to realize that each country has its own requirements for foreigners. However, there are a few countries where English is either widely spoken or where it is possible to move without having to learn the national language. Let's take a look at the countries that are most open to immigrants who do not speak the local language. Germany is one of the most popular countries for immigration due to its strong economy and demand for foreign professionals. While German is widely used in everyday life, there are many opportunities to relocate without knowing the language. The Blue Card program allows highly qualified specialists to work in Germany without mandatory language skills if they have a contract with their employer. Foreign specialists are in demand in the IT sector, engineering, scientific research, and medicine, and in many companies the corporate language is English. Germany actively invites medical professionals. For doctors and nurses, there is a procedure of diploma recognition, after which you can gradually learn the language. There are international communities and English-speaking jobs in major cities such as Berlin, Frankfurt, and Hamburg. If you have a demanded profession, German language is not necessary at first. However, over time it is better to master it to integrate into society. Portugal is one of the most loyal EU countries for immigrants. It does not require knowledge of Portuguese when applying for a golden visa and obtaining a residence permit through investment. Many expats run businesses or work remotely without knowing Portuguese. In tourist regions such as Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve, English is widely spoken. For digital nomads and remote workers, there is a D7 visa which allows you to legally live in the country without being tied to a local job. You can live comfortably in Portugal without language skills, especially if you are financially independent or have an English-speaking job. In Spain, without knowing Spanish, you can find work in large international companies, especially in IT, finance, and marketing. In addition, for investors and wealthy immigrants, a golden visa program is available, which does not require knowledge of Spanish. There are international communities in Barcelona, Madrid, and Valencia, and English is actively used in the tourist business. In major cities, you can find English-speaking doctors, lawyers, and consultants, which makes it easier to adapt. If your goal is to invest, work remotely, or work for an international company, you can learn Spanish after you move. Malta is one of the most convenient destinations for immigration without language barriers. The official languages of the country are Maltese and English, so it is comfortable here even without knowledge of the local dialect. It is possible to work, study, open a business here in English. Malta offers programs of residence permit and citizenship through investments. It is easy to find work in IT, game industry, and financial sector without knowing the local language. It is an ideal country to move to without learning a new language, especially for those who are used to an English-speaking environment. In Cyprus, English is also widely spoken, especially in the major cities. Investment programs are popular here, allowing you to get a residence permit without knowing Greek. English-speaking specialists often work in the sphere of tourism, real estate, finance. There is an international community on the island which simplifies adaptation. It is an excellent destination for life and business without language barrier. Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Netherlands. These countries are characterized by a high level of English proficiency among the local population. The Netherlands and Sweden have programs for startups and skilled professionals where knowledge of the local language is not required. Finland has a startup visa that allows entrepreneurs to move without knowledge of Finnish. Denmark actively attracts IT specialists, engineers, and scientists, and large companies use English as the main language of communication. In these countries, it is possible to work and even do business in English, but for everyday life, it's better to know the local language. Slovenia is one of the EU countries where it is possible to move without knowing the local language, especially if you have an in-demand profession or investment plans. Although Slovenian is the official language, English is widely spoken in the country, especially in major cities and international companies. Business and investment. Slovenia offers a convenient company registration system, and it is possible to open a business here without knowing Slovenian. The country has a residence permit program for entrepreneurs, which allows you to get the right of residence if you have an active company. Work in international companies. Ljubljana and Maribor are home to branches of large European companies where the corporate language is English, especially IT, financial sector, logistics, and production. Remote work and digital nomads. Slovenia has become popular among freelancers and remote workers in recent years. The country offers a relatively inexpensive standard of living, good ecology, and a convenient location in the center of Europe. Although in many countries it is possible to move without language skills, in some countries language proficiency is mandatory. France, in many fields, even IT, employers require French. Italy, without knowledge of Italian, it is difficult to find a job outside of large companies. Belgium, knowledge of Dutch, French, or German is required. Austria, in most cases, knowledge of German is required. However, even in these countries there are exceptions, especially for IT specialists, students, and businessmen. Many professions in Europe allow you to work without knowledge of the national language, especially in international companies, the tourism sector, or remote work. However, it is worth considering that the higher the qualifications and demand for your profession, the easier it is to find a job without a language barrier. Here are the main areas where you can get a job without knowing the local language. IT and technology, software developers, system analysts, data engineers, DevOps specialists. In most international IT companies, the working language is English, which makes the profession one of the most accessible for immigrants without knowledge of the country's language. Specialists are especially in demand in Germany, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, and Estonia. Medical professionals, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists. Germany, the Czech Republic, and Scandinavian countries are in dire need of qualified medical professionals. Diploma confirmation will be required to work in this field, and language skills will be necessary over time. But in the first stages, it is possible to work in English-speaking clinics. International business and finance, accountants, financial analysts, HR specialists, marketing and sales managers. In international corporations, especially in Luxembourg, Switzerland, Ireland, and Germany, business communication is often conducted in English. Tourism and hospitality, hotel workers, receptionists, waiters, bartenders, animators. In popular tourist countries such as Spain, Portugal, Greece, Cyprus, and Malta, English is the main language of communication with tourists, so the local language is often not required. Logistics and transportation, international freight drivers, couriers, warehouse workers. In countries with a developed logistics system, Germany, Poland, Netherlands, such jobs are often filled by foreigners without requiring language skills, especially if the work is not related to customers. Freelance and remote work, graphic designers, marketers, copywriters, video editors, programmers. If your profession allows you to work for yourself or with international clients, you can earn anywhere in the world, regardless of your country of residence. Immigration is not only about finding a job and applying for documents, but also about getting used to a new culture, mentality, and way of life. The better prepared you are for the move, the easier the adjustment will be. Here are a few key steps to help you settle into a new country faster. Use English. Even if the country is not English-speaking, knowledge of English makes the adaptation process much easier. In Europe's major cities, many people speak English, especially in business and among young people. If you have at least a basic level of English, it will help you in stores, transportation, government offices, and when looking for a job. Look for immigrant communities. Most countries have forums, social media groups, and local chat rooms where you can get advice on finding housing, paperwork, medical care, and adaptation. In major cities, there are international clubs and organizations that help new residents integrate into society and make useful acquaintances. Start learning the language on site. Even minimal knowledge of the language of the country of residence will make integration much easier. You can start with mobile apps or go to free courses that many EU countries offer for immigrants. Knowing basic phrases will help in everyday life and in time, in job search and social contacts. As you can see, moving to the European Union without language skills is not a myth, but a real possibility. There are countries where you can live and work comfortably using English, and in some areas the language is not mandatory at the start. If you have a demanded profession, you are ready to invest or work remotely, you have every chance of successful immigration. However, it is important to take into account many nuances. The choice of a country taking into account your goals and capabilities, the requirements for documents, the time frame for their processing, and the process of adaptation after the move. Each country has its own immigration laws, and ignorance of the details may lead to visa denial, difficulties with legalization or loss of time. To avoid complications, save energy, and increase your chances of a successful move, it is better to consult with professionals in advance. Leave a request for consultation with immigrant and law lawyers, and we will help you choose the optimal immigration strategy, prepare all the necessary documents, explain the legal nuances, and answer your questions. Moving to Europe is a real step towards a new life, and it is better to start with appropriate preparation. If you would like to learn more or start the process today, contact us now. We are ready to help you take the first step towards a new life. All contact information is in the description of this video. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and ask your questions in the comments. I will be happy to answer them. Discover the world of opportunities with Immigrant in Law.